It is a first for the Europeans. The first time we have ever had a drag cow on the podcast. Actually, you know what? I wish that was true. But in fact, Soya the drag cow is not our guest this week. Daniel Hellman, the Swiss artist who performs as Soya the drag cow, he is our delightful guest.
Oh, sorry. Did I mislead our listeners at the beginning of the show, do you think?
Well, I think they're here now because you misled them. So we'll let it slide. We're glad that you stuck with us, everyone. And Dominic, even though you sadly weren't able to join us for this interview because you were singing, you were the first person to introduce me to Soya. How did you discover this marvelous drag cow?
Yeah, I'm so sad I missed the interview. There was a scheduling/technical problem. The world did things that meant that I couldn't be there, unfortunately. But I was so excited about it, so I'm glad you got to speak to him. I heard about Soya via my brother-in-law, who is part of a collective of trans filmmakers called the Transketeers, and they made a short film where Soya has this beautiful afternoon hanging out with an intersex bull.
It's really lovely. And one of the things you're about to hear in this interview, just to briefly explain what the hell a drag cow is, because it took me a minute to understand it. Soya is kind of like a drag queen, but a cow. It's probably best that you just go on the Instagram and check it out. Anyway, she advocates for plant-based diets with a combination of serious messaging about cruelty in the meat and dairy industry and also camp, fun, ridiculous music and videos. It is just a wonderful thing that exists. I spoke to Daniel, the visionary behind this marvelous creation, on Monday. And for reasons that are probably by now obvious, because we've made several references to it, I was pretty bummed out on Monday and not feeling great. And this interview made me feel so much better. It is so joyous and just exactly what I needed. So if you are also not feeling great this week, I hope this conversation can provide a little balm for your soul. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So we've got a lot to talk about, but I thought it might be good to start with a very basic question at the beginning. Why did you decide to become a drag cow?
Yes, it's a very good question. It was actually in 2017 and 18, I had received a scholarship from my hometown Zurich to spend 6 months in San Francisco as an art residency. And prior to that, I had made a music, dance, theater piece about meat and our relationship to death. In this process, I became a vegan. I realized how violent our food system is, including cheese. I thought cheese is just like a natural product. Cows, they eat grass, cheese comes out. But the more I learned about the industry, about the cows being made pregnant, the baby calves being killed every year, the environmental impact of this whole system, it just became harder, and I had the need as an artist to speak about these things, but I also realized that nobody wants to listen to somebody speak about meat and dairy production, and people just want to be left alone having their burgers. Mm-hmm. And in San Francisco, I met a lot of incredible artists and activists. It was the first Trump presidency, and they were on fire and fighting against homophobia, transphobia, and other social justice questions. And I saw these performers on stage and was like, damn, I want to have the same courage, the same boldness, the same fire to speak about animal industries, animal rights, animal liberation. And thus, the idea popped up, like maybe instead of being a drag queen, I could be a drag cow. And this was like, I don't know, almost 7 years ago. It was almost a joke in the beginning. I thought like, okay, and now the cow, her name is Soya. She literally defines my life. She has brought me to so many nice places, so many crazy experiences. And I'm really grateful for having her as such a central part of my artistic practice.
Can you tell us about her character and her personality?
So Soya, she is a cow, but she is also a bit of a goddess. She can be a healer. She's also very silly. She has beautiful horns, and sometimes she has latex udders dangling between the legs. She's sassy. She's smart. She is also very caring. There's also something motherly about Soya, which I like, because for me, cows also, they have this calmness to them. My personality as a human is very bubbly. I'm more a chicken person than a cow person, I would say. But Soya gives me this kind of she's like a grande dame. She's a diva. She's a bigger than life character. And in that way also, I think she gives me courage to do things where me as Daniel, I will be like, oof, that's terrifying. But when I'm as Soya with my high heels and my makeup, like drag makeup and long lashes and lipstick and extravagant clothes, I will climb on the McDonald's for a silly photo or something and scream at people in the streets. And it's very playful. And it's a wonderful project.
Last year, you went to Italy for an interspecies wedding. You married a bull called Ferruccio. Can you tell us about this wedding and why you decided to do it? And was it everything that you hoped it would be?
It was one of these experiences where while I was like in this wedding dress, a cow in a white wedding gown on a hill outside of Rome with kitsch pop music playing, I was like, this is such a crazy fever dream. It's like a queer boy fantasy of being a Disney princess, but can you marry a cow? It's wild. And it has an interesting backstory as well, because this animal sanctuary is a place where they rescue animals from slaughter or from farms that exploit and ultimately kill the animals. The two people running this place, Massimo and Simone, the two human people, they are good friends of mine. And they invited me to perform there 1 year before. And when they announced that Soya the cow is coming to the sanctuary, they had a big backlash of their online followers. People would be like, you should take care of animals, but don't follow this gender craziness. Why are you this wokeness shit? You're supposed to just take care of animals and shut up. And these two were like, they were very adamant. They were like, we stand for liberation for everybody. If we are for animal rights, we also stand for human rights. They are intrinsically linked. Humans are animals. So we need to take care of all these different struggles collectively. And they were really behind me, and I felt really supported. The year after, they were like, let's have you again. Let's see how we can shock these people even more. And they're like, maybe the best way to shock them is by making a performance, which is like in Italy, the Catholic country. Let's make a wedding. I arrived there. I stayed for 1 week. And each day of the week, I would go on 2 dates with cows who live there.
Different cows.
Yes, it was different cows because I wanted to know them. And I made a little interactive game with my followers. So like I was present, let's say, Carolina, who is a very slow cow, very calm. And I would ask him, what do you think? Can I date somebody who has a different energy level, or will I get bored? One of the cows, Casimiro, would like hit me with his horns. And it's like, I like him, but he's kind of dangerous. Like, do you think I should? It was very silly and funny. One cow, Lara, who is my hero, because she ran away pregnant from a dairy farm and came to the sanctuary by her own.
Wow.
She just literally came, walked up to me, sniffed me, and then walked past.
Oh, okay. She wasn't interested.
Shit. Not at all. So you never should meet your heroes. But then there was the wedding day, and I had one specific cow in mind I wanted to marry, which was Lorenzino, who was a bit the punk rock star of the place. And he has this nice haircut. He would even let me sit on his back.
Wow.
It was crazy. But on the day of the wedding, he decided to run away to the mountains with some of the other cows. He literally disappeared.
So much drama in this place.
So much drama. But then when I walked down with Massimo, who has founded this animal sanctuary, we came to the place where the cows were gathered. And we had this fake Italian priest as a wedding ceremony master. I was standing there, and Ferruccio, he came from the back and just stood next to me. And it was like, he was telling me like, why did you think you can choose who you want to marry? Like, that's another kind of human way of thinking. Like, you control, you create the narrative. It's me who is choosing you. And he came next to me. He played his part. Like, it was incredible. We exchanged vows. I said yes. And Ferruccio said moo. Then we exchanged our rings. We put it on our horns. And we had a vegan, cow-friendly cake that we eat together. And Ferruccio ate almost all the cake. He didn't leave me much. It was hilarious. It was
a very sharing attitude to his new spouse, but never mind.
It was just lovely. I mean, I was so surprised also by his curiosity. He loved it. Of course, it was a critique in a way also of like the traditional institution of marriage. But it was also a way to open it up and to show like we can be in loving solidarity with other animals. Like we can celebrate respect, mutual responsibility, care with other creatures. And the family model, a nuclear family or also an extended family, it's not limited to our own species. We can be in solidarity with others. And that's what this wedding for me was about. Of course, I'm not sharing my daily life with Ferruccio now. He's doing his cow life. I do my human life. But the performative gesture of celebrating mutual respect with a being that is very different, but we can still like recognize each other. We can look into each other's eyes. I see he's someone, not something. And that was what this performance was about.
Ferruccio is not the only cow that you have made a bond with. You also traveled to Limburg a while back in the Netherlands to meet Pete, who is an intersex bull who was rescued from slaughter from the dairy industry. What was it like meeting Pete?
I did a theater show in the Netherlands. It's called Dear Human Animals, a solo show. And after the show, a woman came up to me, Leonie Kornips. She's a cow linguist, researching cow communication. And she came to me and said, everything you said in this show speaks from my heart. And she told me how she had rescued Pete while she was doing field research. And then it turned out that Pete was intersex. So Pete has 2/4 of an udder and a penis, which is placed in a bit too much in the front than usual. In a way, she told me, you both are queer cows and I would love you to meet Pete. And then we built this project together with other people, also a scientist who works on care ethics and a collective of filmmakers. And we were meeting on a special day on a meadow in Limburg for this encounter between me and Pete. And I was kind of scared before also because I didn't know how Pete would react to the makeup and to the gloves and the whole costume thing. Would Pete recognize me, that I'm the same person in drag and out of drag? But then the encounter was so tender and so loving. And in a way, I realized also how superficial these preoccupations were. For somebody like Pete, my gender expression doesn't matter. It's not about makeup or if I'm wearing a dress or pants or high heels or no shoes at all. Pete connected to my energy and my smell maybe and the way I approach him, the way I coexist next to him. And we had an incredible moment of, sitting next to each other in the grass, leaning against each other. He was nibbling on my horns and my hair. And at some point, he literally put his heavy head. I mean, it's a big animal. It's like, 700 kilos or even more. He put his head on my head and he was so deeply relaxed. And I was relaxed. And we have so many prejudices about bulls, about them being aggressive, and oftentimes they're here just to reinforce our own macho ideas of masculinity. And Pete is so different. Pete had this gentleness about him, and the encounter is beautiful, and the film made by the Transketeers is very beautiful. It tells his story, but it also shows the images of our encounter. Yeah, it's going to premiere actually this week in a congress on care ethics from the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands.
I love that your work is all at once serious, has a very serious message about the dairy industry and the cruelty embedded in it, and is also funny and ridiculous. What do you see as the most important element of your work as Soya? Is it the fact that it is activism? Is it the fact that it is art? Or are you just hoping to have fun and connect with these beautiful animals?
I'm happy to hear this element of the humor, because I really think humor is necessary for us to survive. We live in such complex times. We have the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis. We have wars, right-wing extremism rising in many, many places. We have difficult conditions, economic pressures, and navigating all these pressures. I think humor is a tool to breathe, is a tool to not let the difficult things take away our joy. And for me, this is very, very central in my life. I want Soya's art and activism to be almost infectious. I want people to be like, wow, it's possible to be caring and empathic and still be alive and vibrant. We don't need to go into depression as an answer, because connecting with others and celebrating the possibility of connections and the possibility of running in a field and the possibility of being in the sunshine, all these things that many animals and humans do not have, especially in the food industries. They're locked up for their entire lives until they're slaughtered. And celebrating these moments is the key. And I feel a lot of activism is very serious. And I deeply respect all the people doing that kind of activism. I don't think there is one single instrument or tool. But for me, in order to be in my power, I need to be joyful. It was not easy to find that, I think, as an artist, to work on topics that are so heavy. I mean, I read a book about the fishing industries, and in the end, I just want to stay in bed for 5 days. But it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve the fishers. It doesn't serve the people depending on the fishing for their livelihoods. We need to dream, to laugh, and that's kind of what I attempt to do with soya.
I think the main thing I took away from that conversation with Daniel is that not all activism needs to be funny or should be funny. There are times where it absolutely cannot be funny. But I do think we should welcome it in these dark times and encourage more funny activism. Because otherwise, I mean, we're just going to drive ourselves nuts. Like, the human spirit cannot take endless misery all the time.
It's true. And there's a real problem amongst the activism community of lots of burnouts and people really struggling with their own mental health and having to stop. So, yeah, any way we can make it lighter, I'm totally behind.
Yeah, if there is a way to campaign about serious things that matter in a way that makes people laugh and lifts their spirits, why wouldn't we want more of that? Soya the Drag Cow has a joyous Instagram account, which you should absolutely follow. You will find a link in the show notes along with Daniel's website about his wider work as an artist and performer. And the film that Daniel made about meeting Pete the Dutch Bull. Dominic and I have already seen it. It's really sweet, isn't it?
It's so sweet and touching. Yeah, and also has a serious message.
It is premiering this week in the Netherlands, but I very much hope it will be more widely available online soon. So you can keep an eye on Soya's Instagram account for updates.